Hello and welcome back. In this episode we're going to be taking a look at the ActionChip widget. The ActionChip widget works much like the standard chip widget, however it allows the user to press the chip and for logic to be provided inside the onPressed callback, which will be executed when the user presses on the chip. You'll notice our homepage contains a scaffold with an app bar, and inside the body of the scaffold we're going to create an ActionChip widget, like so. You'll notice by the squiggle there in our IDE, the parameter label is required and the parameter onPressed is required. So we'll specify both of those now. We'll give the label a default placeholder value for the purposes of this demonstration, and we'll simply specify onPressed as an empty callback function. And you'll notice there on the right hand side our ActionChip being displayed. Now the ActionChip works much like the standard chip widget. As you can see, it uses the same styling. However, whereas the standard chip doesn't allow you to press it, the ActionChip does. For example, by pressing on the ActionChip, you'll notice we get a similar animation as the different buttons and other pressable widgets. You might be thinking if you can disable the ActionChip or not, and you might be thinking if you specify the onPressed of null that this will make the ActionChip disabled. However, this will cause an error. onPressed cannot be null for an ActionChip, meaning that at the time of recording you cannot simply specify an onPressed of null to disable the ActionChip. Reverting the onPressed to an empty callback function will remove the error and revert the ActionChip to its default. You'll notice there are a number of parameters that you can specify to customize the ActionChip. For example, you can specify an avatar, which we'll do now. The avatar widget appears on the left hand side of the ActionChip, and we will specify the avatar of a circle avatar widget with a child containing a text widget with my initials. You'll notice that we then have the circular avatar appearing with my initials in it on the left hand side of the ActionChip widget. You can also customize the label style, the text style applied to the label, the padding that surrounds the label, as we've got the onPressed callback function, which is executed every time the ActionChip is pressed by the user. You can change the pressed elevation and the default elevation. You'll notice the default elevation is 0, essentially making the chip appear flat on the page. However, you'll notice when we press the chip, we have a slight increase there in the elevation to highlight to the user that they are pressing on the ActionChip. Again, you can specify those different elevation values using the elevation parameter and the press elevation parameter. You can customize the tooltip of the ActionChip, the shape of the chip, its click behavior, a focus node for the chip, whether or not the chip should be automatically focused when it's brought into view. You can change the background color of the chip, which by default uses this grey color on a light theme. You can change the padding around the chip, its visual density, the material tap target size for the press event. As we mentioned earlier, the default elevation, which as we can see defaults to 0, making the chip flat on the page. And you can then customize the shadow color, the color of the shadow appearing when the ActionChip widget is pressed. You'll notice how on pressing the widget we get a slight drop shadow effect applied to the ActionChip widget. Essentially then, the ActionChip widget works in a similar way to the standard chip widget. However, whereas the standard chip widget does not allow the user to press it, the ActionChip widget will allow the user to press the chip, and you can then perform some logic in the onPressed callback function, which is executed every time the ActionChip is pressed by the user. This also differs to the choice chip, which by default will essentially select and deselect itself when the user taps on the chip. With the ActionChip widget, whenever the user presses the ActionChip, it will act much the same as a button would, executing the onPressed callback function, with there being just a single state, as opposed to two states of selected and deselected with the Choice Chip widget. So the ActionChip then essentially very useful if you want to allow the user to press on the ActionChip as if it was a button widget. I hope you found this video useful. Thank you very much for watching.